Hello, Timo.
Hi,
21st of September. How are you doing?
fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. A little bit tired today, but good. But before we start into today's really important subject, would you like to introduce us? Because you've got some very famous and important assistants with you today, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, I didn't want to do that, and they are good friends of mine and celebrities, but they agreed to join today, and they're going to be my
Oh,
and oh, thanks
oh, what
guys
are
for
their
being
names?
here. Thanks guys for being here.
Is that Sylvester and Sweetie Pie?
That's correct. The tweet is here.
Now, what we need to do is we need to make sure that Sylvester doesn't eat Sweetie Pie during a live, because
No,
otherwise,
I don't let it happen. No,
don't let that happen. So keep them under control. So
no,
yeah,
they are professionals anyway. It's just you know.
yes, very important, very good contacts. Yeah. So today we are going to talk about protein, and it seems really obvious, protein for dogs and cats and everything. But one of the questions you and I get asked, or statements we get told all the time, is, "Oh, my dog or cat's on a healthy diet because it's fed meat or because it's fed raw, isn't it?" And
Yeah.
that just gets told to us all the time. Now, what does that raise in you when people say things like that? And thank you so much to everyone who's joining us. Glad Michelle, I'm glad you liked the little assistants. They're going to be answering all
Oh,
your questions later. So yeah, so what do you say to people when they say, "Oh, my dog or cat's fed meat or it's fed raw"?
yeah. So like a vegan, you can just drink Coke and eat chips all day long. You would be still vegan and healthy vegan. You can also eat just meat as a cat and raw, and it's not as healthy as you might think, because for a cat, the whole animal is a prey, not its muscle, not its leg, not its butt, not the steak of a mouse. Sorry, not the steak of a squirrel. It's the whole thing. It's most of the whole thing. Let's say at least. And once you study what each body part has, its nutrient, how do you say it, profile, then you start to understand why the cat eats what it eats, or what the dog eats what it eats in the nature, instead of just grabbing one leg and going away with it, because
Yes.
it doesn't contain everything that they need, and it doesn't even contain most of the daily things they need. So we can talk about it later on, but I want to come to this in a point that when we say protein, most of the people have a picture in their head. It can be a piece of animal, it can be meat. Some vegans would think about beans immediately, or spirulina, whatever. When you tell protein to me, I think of complex structures that have functions in the body and do stuff. And I want to start from there before we go really into what type of protein and everything. So, animals, we included also, or your pets, do not need protein, or they don't have to take protein from outside. They need the building blocks of the protein, which is amino acids. So when they take it, everything that goes into their stomach is built down or broken down to its building blocks, the amino acids and peptides. That means none of us need protein from outside. We all need the amino acids. So for cats and dogs, especially for cats, the type of amino acids in the food, especially if they're in free form, like cooked, boiled, or a bit rotten sometimes, or just juicy in blood form, whatever, it's more attractive because they want to use as little energy as possible to break it down and get it as soon as possible, because it's their main energy source. So, so we make it clear, proteins are functional things, but everyone has to build their own. We don't get them from outside. We build our own, like collagen. You are not getting younger when you keep eating collagen, because you are breaking it down in your stomach. You just pick the pieces from there and you have to rebuild it yourself. Same goes for animals. So I wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Rose is saying that heard that mice are good diet for cats, for people with stable cats and things.
Well, you don't really have to hear it. So if you know anything about a cat, you know that they are after mice, right? So it's normal. And the reason for that is small rodents like mice or very small birds are typical normal meal for cats. So for them, this is their original meal. So we made the dog food and cat food or canned food or dry food. This is our invention. The cat has nothing to do with it. They didn't choose it. They didn't ask for it. And they definitely didn't create it. So that's normal, yes.
Yeah, so it's good. And I live in the countryside, as you all know, and my cats do rather enjoy the mice. My dogs would love to enjoy the squirrels, but their love of the squirrels isn't from the same place that my love of squirrels is. But luckily they never catch them. So yeah, mice are sort of good. So when we're talking about proteins, it's really important that we understand, as you say, that we're talking about the amino acids and what you can get for those. So talk us through briefly, Timo, about this difference between essential amino acids we hear a lot.
All right. That also includes the complete versus incomplete protein, or plant versus animal protein, right? So there are arguably 21 amino acids, and some people would add taurine. I don't, but we will discuss about it. And these are building blocks. When they come together, they make different proteins, right? So, and from these 21 amino acids, 10 of them are essential for cats and dogs. So they have to have them from their diet. They cannot synthesize them, or they cannot convert anything to them. They might convert things from them, but not to them. And these are essential. So when we say essential, we don't mean they have to have it, because other amino acids are also essential to have it, but they can be converted, and these cannot be. So essential means has to come out from outside, from the diet. That also includes fatty acids, right? So essential is always, you have to eat it. You cannot just produce it.
You can't synthesize it within the body.
Or you cannot convert something to it. So you cannot take glutamine and make a methionine from it, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if the piece of meal you are eating, or a piece of meat you are getting, has all these 10 amino acids in it, then we call it a complete protein source, because all the amino acids that the animal needs essentially, or as an essential amino acids, are in this nutrient, in this piece of meat. But when you take a bean, for instance, normal bean, soybean is complete. Normal bean, the black bean, the kidney bean, it doesn't have all the amino acids, and it's not complete. So if you eat only beans as your protein source, you will miss some of the amino acids that you might need daily or weekly or monthly, but you will miss them, and your body will show it sooner or later. That said, humans are a bit different, because humans mostly recycle their protein. So when you have amino acids in your body, you use something, you made a hormone, you break it down. These are loose again, they are not used. So you can put it back exactly like Lego bricks. For cats and dogs, protein is the main energy source. So they burn it. So they have to get more and more all the time, because this is their energy source. We use carbohydrates mostly, and fat. They cannot do that, especially cats. Cats need like a lot of protein all the time to burn.
Absolutely. Now we've got a question here. We'll go through these as we go, come to convenient points. Tammy's saying, is there any link with protein needs and liver issues? My pup is on milk thistle, but just wondering.
All right. I'm not sure if I totally understood the question properly. There is a link, of course, between liver and protein, because a lot of amino acids are used as liver enzymes. So all the enzymes are made, some proteins mostly. And when you don't have the right amino acids, especially for cats, some of the functions cannot happen. And that is destructive, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So, Tammy, you'd probably need to give us a bit more information in the chat here. Just a comment from Indigo. Yeah, you use bilinomates and Verm X. Yes, I'm really familiar with both of those. That's great to hear that you're using that. Interestingly, the bilinomates didn't work with mine, but I think it really depends on the animals. But it's really wonderful to see you using those natural ones. Polity eccentric. Some of your names are hysterical. I have a cat that has refused all processed cat food. Good, wise cat. Well done, cat. Since he started eating, he also won't eat dark meat. I keep trying. Well, one, we don't want him to eat any processed cat food, so that's very, very good. Funny enough, I've got a stray cat that adopted us last Christmas. I was so happy that she chose to be with us. It really is just wonderful. Now, she will not, I don't know how long she's lived wild for. She was in a terrible state when she arrived, so she wasn't coping living wild very well, although she kept herself alive. But she won't eat any processed food, which is such a joy. So he won't eat any dark meat. Anything I can think of, any suggestions?
I don't know what you mean with dark meat. Is it organ meat like liver or kidney, or are you talking about really dark red meat?
Yeah.
Like chicken leg or sometimes some part of beef.
Yeah. Okay. And just before we get on to the next bit, Michelle, do feral cats prefer to be outside? I provide food and shelter for some of my feral cats. It really depends. I've got several rescue cats that started off as feral and now are really, really delighted to be inside, particularly in the winter. But it took quite a while to get them comfortable to do that. So they've got cat flaps they can go in and out on. And what I did is I ended up, because last winter was really harsh for us, so I ended up managing to catch them in a cat basket. And then I brought them in for a couple of weeks in a bedroom where they could see and hear everything, but keep their space from the other animals. And when I let them out, they didn't want to go again, and they've stayed ever since. So I think it really depends, but that's wonderful that you're doing that. Polar Tree is saying anything other than breast of chicken or turkey.
Also, yeah, right now your animal doesn't like to eat high iron, high blood organ. I don't know why. That there must be something in the blood that causes it. And try to find different sources of the other meats, maybe a local butcher or organic meat from somewhere. Try to find out if it's the blood or if there's another reason. I cannot help you there. But I can tell you one thing. Chicken breast and turkey breast is good nutrition, but very deficient in many, many things. So you have to complete this if you want to have a long, healthy life for your pet. If not, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Now, with that, Polar Tree, we did cover in last week's video quite a lot about transition. With our cat course, we cover a lot of tips about transitioning, because with cats, it's often a case that they're more sensitive to introducing new things into their diet, a bit like a fussy child that's only eaten a very narrow range. So there's lots of tips in the cat nutrition course about how you can slowly introduce more variety for them. And I've never had one, touch wood, yet that I failed with, although some have taken a lot of patience, I must say. And Tammy's coming back about the question, are there particular nutritional needs for the liver, for a dog's liver? Now, yes, of course, one of the things that we do in all our recipes that we teach in the cat and dog nutrition courses is making sure that you are covering all the nutrition needs, because a lot of people, I've got a lot of people I know and sort of clients I know that will just give their dogs chicken mince or their cats chicken food. And because it's better than a processed can, but as Timo's just said, it will be deficient. Yeah. Okay, great. So we've looked at the amino acids, the complete and essential, and that's something we go into in a lot of details in the courses, because it is really important people understand this, isn't it? Because otherwise our dogs and cats can be be deficient without us knowing.
That is correct. And because of cooking processing has a huge impact on the amino acid profile, because some amino acids are really sensitive to heat. Some of them are not sensitive at all. And when you process something in high temperature, which most of the kibble food is, you destroy some of it and you keep some of the others. So you actually bring the balance away from the food that it had before. That's why you will see always extra amino acid added to the kibble food to make up for it. And one of the amino acids is then taurine, which is not a real amino acid because it doesn't build any protein. But let's say it's like an amino acid, and it's super critical, especially for cats and dogs, which keeps the health of the heart. And do not forget, the heart cannot be just trained to get stronger over time, like you do with your leg muscle or your arm muscle. You cannot just have a sore heart and not working much. So the taurine makes sure that however hard the heart works all day long, that the muscles are not destroyed, especially the pacemakers. So you are born with those pacemakers, you die with those pacemakers. They don't replicate, they don't divide themselves, they don't get more, they don't get less. They have to stay there. And same goes for the cats and dogs. And once the taurine is not there anymore, dogs can produce some of it, but they still need a certain amount. Cats cannot produce at all. The heart starts to fail. And a lot of cats die from it, and dogs too. So it's an important thing.
I've had a couple of people recently that I know where their cats have died from heart failure, which would be caused by the taurine deficiency. So we've got a question here, a comment here by Etienne saying, I buy chicken livers, hearts, gizzards, chicken meat, shrimps, eggs, etc. I boil it lightly and chop it up to mix with their wet food.
So is it shrimps, eggs, or is it shrimps, eggs? So eggs are okay. Shrimps, you have to be really careful, especially for dogs. It's a problem. It's too high in certain things, and it's too high in cholesterol, which is really bad for dogs and extremely bad for cats. So do not feed your pets with high cholesterol all the time. They are not going to eat the body fat if they can avoid. So you have to keep them in, I don't say low fat. I don't like to use that word much. But both animals are not real fat burners. They are protein burners. So try to keep the fat low.
Yeah, okay. Colette's making comment, lots of bacteria in chicken. I had cats allergic to chicken. Do you want to go first on this one, and then I will?
Yeah, both can be true. Yeah, they both are true. Chicken can be allergic to many animals. And don't forget, not every chicken is the same. You can buy a chicken that is like filled with so many stuff that you don't know what's inside. It's not chicken anymore. It doesn't resemble chicken. It just grows in 32 days from 0 to 2 kilogram, 3 kilogram animal. It's impossible. But sometimes you can have organic free range chicken that are fed natural food. They might not cause the same type of allergic reaction. This is number one. Number two, bacteria. Yes. So if you ever see any chicken meat production, you will see that the chicken meat swims actually in its own shit. So it's normal. It's full of bacteria. So they are then washed, cleaned, and served. And that's why chicken meat is not allowed to be cut or washed most in the hospitals, in many places, because the way it is produced is dirty, and you cannot change that. That's it. If you don't cut the chicken before you process it, boil it for 3 minutes or something, then cut it, then you don't have the bacterial problem, because the bacteria are not in the muscle, they're on the surface, they just touch the surface. So if you can get rid of the bacteria on the surface by freezing and or heating slow, not much, but you just have to make proper heat contact so they die. And after that, you can cut small, and you will not have the problem much.
Yeah. Okay. And it's really important. And a lot of allergies, we've covered this in previous shows, but are also a sign that your animal's microbiome is out of balance. And that can be caused by chemical wormers, by pollution, by drinking water, by feeding animals that are full of antibiotics and chemicals and everything. So this is why the quality of what we eat and drink is so important. And we will do a separate show on the microbiome because it's so important. Wolf Love, failing my cat, how do we do it on a tight budget? Well, what I would say to this is there's an assumption already in there that feeding healthy food has to be more expensive. The thing is, you are going to be paying for your food choices with your animals. It's whether you pay for it in the grocery store or whether you pay for it in the vet surgery is a reality, I'm afraid. And when we home prepare anything, whether it's our own meals or our animals' meals, that always saves you money because you're not paying for another company to process it, package it, distribute it, freeze it, etc. So what we always say is start somewhere. Start by introducing some fresh food into your cat's diet. Don't be put off if they're resistant to it. Get the best quality that you can afford and really just start, because every little change, every healthy meal that you give them will make a difference to their health and happiness.
Yes, and I don't know, of course, if Wolf Love's cat is hunting or not. That changes a lot. So if the cat is getting out and hunting all the time, then your input in terms of health is different than if you are the sole feeder of the pet.
Yeah. So, have a look at these things. And, what I would say is there's loads of advice in the cat nutrition course. If you're really struggling to do that course, then contact me and I'll sort something out for you. Because we really want your cats to be healthy and your dogs to be healthy. And it's something we're so passionate about. And once people start down that journey, I certainly find that the peace of mind that it gives me. The other thing that I've done today, which might be relevant to all of you, is I've spoken to my local butcher. I'm a vegan, so I never go to the butcher. I've never been in there, but I had a lovely chat with my local butcher today, and I got my recipes out. I explained what I was looking for. I said, could I buy whole chickens, but them to take the meat off the bone and then give me the carcass so I can use the chicken ribs for my cats and make bone broth, etc., and then give me the meat separately, and similarly with rabbits and things like that. And they were really helpful and really appreciated the questions. So I've emailed them a list of my requirements. They're going to come back to me. So have these conversations with butchers, because you might have a local butcher that has got some little bits they'd be very happy to give you for very little amount of money, because they probably love animals as much as you do and would be willing to help. So it's always worth asking.
So Jim asks a good question about egg. Yeah, raw eggs or cooked. So eggs are coming out of the chicken's butt, and they have the most amount of salmonella from everything else. But normally, if you just boil shortly the egg and get rid of the bacteria on the surface, inside it's more or less safe. So it doesn't really have the really cooked. But it's safer to give it cooked, let's say.
Yeah, okay. And we've got, starting with my intuition, any tips on how to stop my cats eating the food so fast they puke it back up again? So any comments on that, Timo? It's quite a regular thing with cats, I think. We get this issue a lot.
Yeah, gobblers. So yes, you have always the gourmets and the gobblers. So in between, almost nothing happens in between for the cats. So for the gobblers, you have to find out why this is happening. So first, try to put the food somewhere else. Try to find another place, a more calmer place, what your cat would be happy with, and maybe that changes the behavior. And because cats are not meant to eat as fast as they can. They are mostly they're pulling piece by piece and swallowing. They cannot chew. So if they eat too fast, the pieces are just too big. The stomach will empty. It will say, no way, I cannot work with this.
Yeah. And I would add to that. So I've got one cat that does this. So I would say as Timo has, break the pieces up really small. Can really help. I also find just adding some warm water from the kettle, not hot, but warm water, can really help as well to make it nice and moist if it's not quite moist enough. Find a position where your cat's really comfortable. And also, if you've recently transitioned onto new food and this is a new problem, it can be a novelty, because sometimes they're like, oh, thank goodness I'm getting what I do. So see if it settles down over time as well. Now, there's one, before we move on, Timo, I don't know if this is something that you can talk about here, if it's not really on topic, but the cause of Iodine disease, and can it be reversed? It's quite a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, but can we talk about it later on? Let me finish the...
Let's finish this. We'll come back to that. So, yeah. Okay, so we've looked about the thing. Talk us through the quality of the protein.
Well, okay, so the quality of the protein for cats and dogs is described as how easy it is digested first by the stomach, how easy it is to break down, and then how easy it is on the pancreas, so the enzymes can break down the rest of the protein that was not broken down, and how easy it is to separate from the rest of the food, so it's easily reaching the blood flow. Okay, so this is the quality of protein. This is the digestibility of protein, and the other quality of the protein is, of course, the amino acid profile. So how rich is it in amino acids, or is it covering the essential amino acids at least? So no matter what you do, 40 to 65% of all amino acids will be glutamic acid. It's the most used thing. it's your typical gray Lego block 4x2. So this is in every bag, and it's always there. It will be always used. There are some specialized ones like glycine or cysteine. They are more specialized guys. You need them to get it in. So if they have them in, the quality of your protein is higher. Yeah. And if you don't have them in, or the smaller amounts, then the quality of your protein is lower, because you have to eat more and more and more to cover the need that it was not covered in the meal. Does it make sense? So, okay, from the amino acid profile, we talked about it. But what about the other parts? So what about the digestibility? So for dogs, it's a bit different. They can work with starch and fiber better. So if the protein is connected to fiber, let's say you gave chlorella, very good protein source, but it has fiber in it. So the cat or the dog has to remove the fiber from the protein to be able to digest the protein. So the digestibility of chlorella, or the quality of the protein of the chlorella, is lower than the one from liver, because the liver protein is totally released in the stomach already. And it's broken down to amino acids immediately. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So this is what the difference is, the main difference is.
Yeah, and you've got to be really careful about the fat levels of the meat, haven't you?
Yeah, and carbohydrates and fat levels, of course. But that would be actually, it's good that you say that, because that defines not the quality of the protein itself, but the quality of the whole meal. So, for instance, when you buy dog food, and you will see that some of them, although same kibble, one wants you to feed 300 grams, the second one wants you to feed only 250 grams. The reason for that is the one with the 250 grams has higher digestibility. So for protein, because this is what PDF, it doesn't apply for the UK or USA, but you have you have AFCO, and this is the description. So everything is calculated according to how digestible the protein is. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's the main energy carrier. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really, really important. And getting, looking at the sourcing, obviously, for those people that can afford organic, we're trying to not use the intensively reared meat, because they're so full of chemicals, hormones, and goodness knows what else. And we have actually, spoken about not feeding farmed fish and things like that, because they're very polluted. I just wanted to say about the cat bowls, eating from an angle. Cats do have whiskers, long whiskers, and they do like to eat off flat bowls, in my experiences, or flat mats, so that they're not having to change the angle of their whiskers by putting their head into a tight bowl. But in the wild, they're eating their prey off the floor. They're not finding a specific hill to go to and put it on there before they eat it. So I would say a lot of those are gimmicks. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Timo.
Except drinking. For eating, I totally agree. Drinking is a different thing, because the tongue has to have a certain depth so it can scoop it in. But for eating, no. I prefer for cats. I see that cats like to put their heads in tubes and holes and boxes. But for eating, I would keep it as flat as possible.
Yeah. So wolf love, in terms of for the water fountain, it would be really good for you to go back and listen to our one we did a few weeks ago on all about water for pets, because we cover that in there. So we've looked at the quality. What about the preparation? So here I wanted to make it clear, Timo, so let's start first of all with frozen food and how you defrost it, and then we can go on to talk about cooking.
All right. So if you don't have a local butcher or any type of chance of getting fresh, really fresh, I'm not talking about already frozen and repacked meat, but really fresh things that comes directly from the slaughterhouse, you are getting frozen meat. That's the only way. Like fish, you cannot get fresh fish if you don't live directly at the coast. And once they are thawed, you cannot really refreeze them, because you break the quality of it. You break the cell walls. You destroy everything. So the only way for you is to thaw it. and then use it once it was frozen. The best way to thaw it is in the fridge. So you put it out, you put it into normal fridge at 3, 4, 5 degrees, and leave it over time to slowly thaw it, because that through that you avoid bacterial growth. But if you have outside 5 to 10 degrees, 15 degrees, 18 degrees, you can also put it somewhere out. Be careful that not the cat gets it. But yeah, so you can put it out and you can thaw it like that. Or you can do it at home in a cold and dry room. You can also do it. But avoid anything 20 degrees and higher. In room temperature, you might get all the bacteria active again. That's on the surface. That's not always a big problem for your dog or cat, but it might be a problem for the household, for the other people.
Yeah.
Right? So you can also get fresh meat and fresh ingredients, prepare them, and then freeze them in portions, and then thaw them in the fridge again and give it daily. That's or you thaw it overnight and next day you give it. That's also a good option. But do not refreeze that which was already frozen. That's not very good.
Perfect. Now, what about cooking? I know we cover this in the courses, but can you just briefly explain to us how cooking meat changes its structure?
So Bob said raw meat should be really good, and it is perfect. Raw is the way to go. So there is no dispute. So why we are asking you to freeze the meat and cook it shortly is because of all the parasites and extra bacteria that comes from the human production. That has nothing to do with the normal healthy, let's say, wildlife, because they have their system, everything is fine. But we interfere with the system. We add total new problems to it. Toxins, environmental pollutants, worms that normally cannot grow in the heat, and all the bacteria that comes because of farming practices, factory farming, especially for chicken and turkey. So we have to get rid of them. The easiest way to get rid of them is freezing shortly for 2 days, frozen for 2 days, and boiling it for around 3 minutes in the biggest size you can. So because we just want to destroy things that came in contact after the slaughter. So we are not destroying things that were in the animal while it was living. We just want to get rid of the things that are getting there because of contact. And the easiest way is 3 minutes. Sorry. So why don't we like to cook the meat longer? By the way, fish, keep it 5 minutes because some fish has some enzymes we want to get rid of. Because protein reacts to acid and heat. If you heat something, as you know, if you do a grill, you know what happens to the protein. It gets dark and it gets black, right? So, and it happens to the protein. You change the form. What happens to the egg when it touches the hot pan? It changes its color immediately. From transparent, it becomes white. Because now you change the structure of the protein totally. And this is foreign to your cat's or dog's intestinal tract. So the intestinal tract wants to have the things that they know, not the alien things, but the ones they know. And they don't know how cooked meat or cooked protein look like, it should look like, because everything you cook it in different forms, you have a different color, you have a different taste, you have a different smell, you season it differently. And every time it comes in a different form, and the cells are like, what the hell is that? What do we do with it now? So, and that causes inflammation and other problems, digestive problems, bloating, many things, because you just introduce, it's like, think about it. If you order food, it comes in a black box with sparkly thing outside. You don't know how to open it. You don't know how to look inside it. You don't know what's in it. And every time I deliver you food in this form. So it's, so that's why raw is better, because evolutionary speaking, the dog's body knows, the cat's body knows how to deal with it, good or bad, but they know how to deal with it. And once it comes in a different form, it's confusing.
Yeah. So all of most of mine are on raw. Some of them like their chicken cooked, and they like the liver sort of flash boil, so to speak. Well, the cats do, the dogs don't care. Now, Etienne's saying, I read that organ meats are the most nutritiously dense for cats.
And dogs.
And
no
dogs.
difference. The organ meats are the most nutrient, period, because they do the functions. So the muscle has its function to move only and heat the blood. There are only two functions, nothing else. So yeah, that's it. But the liver does all the stuff. It's the laboratory. It does everything. So the liver is full of stuff all the time. It's like you are comparing a gym for men with a chemical laboratory. So which one is which one has more different things? So the chem lab, of course, has more things. And same goes with the kidneys. For the kidneys, heart is very similar to muscle meat, only higher potassium and phosphorus, but the rest is very, very similar.
Taurine in, Timo.
Yeah, taurine more, especially for beef. It's a big difference. For chicken, between heart and liver, I would still choose the liver. But yes, of course, heart has always taurine in it because that's the main region that taurine works. You're right.
Because one of my cats absolutely goes mad for the poultry heart. I mean, he really goes mad for it. And anyone who knows how much I talk about Idris knows how he's so special. But there is a but with the organ meats, isn't there? Because you can have too much of a good thing.
That is correct. So thank you for bringing this up. So the amount of organ meats is important. If you are not a wild male lion as the alpha of the pack, you shouldn't go for the liver all the time. So the liver is too rich for most of the cats. Of course, you can transition to more liver over time, but 10% is max, and do not give liver alone as a whole meal because it will upset the stomach and intestinal tracts. Yeah.
So again, we've got a lot of advice on this in our courses. And the reason I'm going on about the courses and Timo's is not because we're trying to plug you to buy something, just because we put those courses together because we get asked the same questions over and over again. But more importantly, people innocently make the same mistakes over and over again, don't they, Timo? And it can be absolutely catastrophic when you don't understand how to balance your dog and cat's meals properly.
Yeah, and for instance, this the question about organ meat comes always. It's the best question actually because it's answered the most important question, especially for raw feeders. Why raw food eating dogs and cats fail? Because the lack of organ meats and mostly the overeating of fats. But in the course, we have a huge list, recipes and ingredients list. All the ingredients are there. Perfectly said. You can bulk this one, but you have to be careful with this one. Try to combine the 10% this, 30% that. And this is, for instance, the recipes. We explain the recipes like that. And I assure you, once you read this, you know how to make your recipe yourself. The aim of the course is to show you how you understand food and how you put the things together that makes a healthy meal. Yeah, and sustainable diet, of course. Sustainable is the key word.
Oh, wrong one. I keep doing the wrong one. Yeah. So we've got the big list of ingredients as well, which I will share with you as well. But what I would like, even I can manage this. So if I and my husband, not that I should be mean to Mark, but if he loves it, he absolutely loves it because it's so basic for him, and he's really got the hang of this now. And we've got a list on here of first choice, second choice, third choice. We go through the different meats that you've got. We give a key for which ones you've got to limit the amount of because perhaps you can have too much of a good thing. And we've got the ones that you should avoid. So it really does give you all the information that you need, and it's a lot simpler than once you think. So what most people have told us is that, once they've actually got into the hang of it and got their basic little kit together, it's so quick and easy for them to prepare. So it's really good fun for people. It's just so rewarding knowing that you're really giving them, exactly what is going into there, and that's so important that you know what's in there. And Andrea, our lovely trusted assistant, thank you so much, Andrea, has put the discount code. So anyone watching this video, use discount code BALLS10, which you will see on the screen now and along the bottom, and that gets you 10% off either of the courses. So
let's go back shortly to Edison's. We should make another, maybe a whole episode about it. But Edison's disease is actually nothing in itself. It just says the adrenal glands don't work well. It can be many things, and it's not described well. That's why I said it's very deep. And adrenal glands are very sensitive to two things. One, highly processed food that will, especially anything that is high in carbohydrates for cats, and for dogs, everything that is too high in fat and carbohydrates. And second, it reacts to stress a lot. So if the cat is stressed, if it's a social stress at home, it can be electromagnetic stress. Your cat might be sleeping under your Wi-Fi router or whatever. It can be stress from neighbors. There is a dog always pissing your other dog off, whatever. So all these can cause the adrenal glands to overwork. And one more thing that can be very detrimental is if your cat or dog doesn't have enough iodine. Iodine is connected directly with and selenium, connected directly with the thyroid gland, but the thyroid gland and adrenal gland are extremely connected. So they regulate each other more or less, especially about energy production and how the mood is happening, so to speak, according to if they want to move, if they want to lay, if they're stressed, if if the shoulders go down or they're up and alert. And all these have a direct effect on the adrenal glands. So we should make another episode about it. It's very deep. It's impossible just to say. And
also, it ties in, doesn't it, Timo, to when we're looking at our general wellness course that we're in the process of putting together, one for cats and one for dogs, because basically a lot of these things that our cats, our dogs, us humans suffer from, a lot of the root causes are the same in terms of looking at the stress and the contamination and how you can deal with that and making sure you're getting the right nutrients in. So quite often there's a lot of links between these conditions. Now, just before we go on to single source and proteins and protein rotation, probiotics for cats and dogs, we cover this a lot in all of them and in all our talks. But probiotics, again, it's a subject in itself. I'm not a fan at all of probiotics. I use effective microorganisms, soil-based effective microorganisms, because all the studies sort of show that if you use probiotics, particularly for extended periods of time, you're flooding the body with a very narrow range of bacteria. So that's certainly my take on it. Timo, have you got anything to add on that?
So actually, you are right, but I want to define something. So what you are giving is also probiotic. Because it helps the growth of the bacteria and it brings new bacteria into the system. But when somebody tells you probiotic, they normally mean the powder or a tablet or a capsule that is full of 5 to 10, 15 strains of bacteria.
Well, there's a legal definition, Timo.
Yes. What I'm saying is to make it clear. So what you are saying is doing the same job as probiotic does, but in a much better way, because it brings naturally fermented, a lot of high quality bacteria in different forms, different strains that happen automatically, naturally. If you give a probiotic, it's like a mercenary group. You send them in, they clean up all the imbalanced, bad bacteria you don't want, but they stay there. Nobody wants to have a military at their home. Nobody wants it. So
that's a really good analogy.
Yeah, so you don't want to have them because they are not there to help you out to work. They don't make the work you want. The gut bacteria have their own job, and it's well defined between the different strains, and they do it together collectively, and they work in harmony with the intestinal tract. They bring information from outside. It's a very interesting thing, very deep subject. But one thing for sure, the bacteria you give with the tablet does not complete the job. So if you need a baker, you don't send the soldier. The baker has to be trained and it has to be a baker, right?
Yeah. So, and one of the problems is with this, one of the problems, Etienne, is that because there's legal definitions to what you're allowed to call a probiotic, so that means that some of these fermented soil-based effective microorganisms products, they're not allowed to be sold as a probiotic, and they're not allowed to list the bacteria that are in there, which is far wider ranging. So it's really, unless you understand how the products work, you probably wouldn't know that you need to use them. So so I would be very, very careful with that. So let's have a quick talk, Timo, about single source proteins and protein rotation.
Yeah, super good. So single protein is a somehow failed description of something. You mean single protein source.
Yeah.
And that would be the animal you are choosing to feed your pet. So a rabbit is a single protein source, then a chicken is another one, a turkey is another one, beef is a blah, blah, blah. So when you mix them, so let's say you have an egg in the food that is made out of beef, then you have now 2 different protein sources, right? Then it's mixed protein source, not one anymore. But if you have a chicken-based meal with an egg in it, then you have 2 protein sources, but they are the same because they have the same DNA, the same type, right? So first of all, some animals show reaction to mixed proteins and they get faster their allergies and they show more allergies. Some animals don't care at all. I mean, I know a dog eating since 12 years of food that has 4 or 5 different protein sources in it and never showed any allergy, nothing at all. But it can happen. So the better solution would be that you have a single protein source, but you rotate it all the time. So today you feed chicken, tomorrow maybe chicken too, maybe 2 days later again. But after that, you give 1 day fish, then you give 2 days beef. For Bob, he can give kangaroo or whatever. So, and then you can mix these things, or anaconda if you can get one. So you can mix things.
Crocodile.
Yeah, but don't
down under.
But don't try to combine everything all the time because you think the food has to be complete. So maybe it's important disclaimer: balanced food doesn't mean you have everything inside every single meal. Because I can ask you a question. Any of you, how many calories did you eat today? And what did you eat? And how much vitamin C you had your last meal? And how much vitamin B1 you had in your breakfast? So there is no single meal that covers everything. It shouldn't be, because the body cannot absorb everything in the highest quality when everything all the time is together. That's why broth is not a medicine. It has advantages, but it's not the single entity that covers everything, and when you take it, all the problems are gone. That doesn't happen like that, right?
Yeah. I'm not even going to go there with your snakes, Bob. I'm not. I know Bob quite well. We can have these jokes, can't we, Bob? But yeah, we've got snakes in my garden, and my cats have caught them before. But luckily, I managed to put them in the neighbour's garden.
But they will come back.
Sorry, Sue. They did come back. They do come back. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
Teresa, maybe you send Catherine an email.
Yeah.
And you might talk about it.
Yeah, send me an email. We don't have the facility to do that, but I can arrange something with you. That's absolutely fine, Teresa. We can sort you out with that. So the final thing I just wanted to cover we covered it a bit, but health problems by not getting the protein sources right. We've already covered the fact that it can have a major effect on heart health.
Yeah.
Something called DCM, dilated cardiac
myopathy. Yeah.
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 What else might people start noticing if they're not getting their protein right? Because the whole body's going to be out of balance, isn't it?
Yeah. So there are 2 things to discover here. One is the very amino acid that is lacking as a building block or a functional part of the system. But the second thing is most of these amino acids are also carrying minerals. For instance, the best way to get, or the most way that a cat gets its selenium from, is the selenium that is connected to an amino acid. And if that amino acid is not in the food, selenium is also not in the food. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So a lot of amino acids are connected with copper or zinc, and they are part of these amino acids. And when they are not in, both copper and zinc is missing. Then getting from outside the non-organic minerals doesn't help there at all, because they have to come in this form to be absorbed. The second thing is, some amino acids are used to build tendons. Some amino acids are built to produce hair. Some amino acids are built to build nervous system or blood cells. So depending on which amino acids are missing, those functions will be impaired.
Yeah.
Right? So it's everywhere. But the typical thing is Addison's disease, for instance, is a good connection. If the food doesn't have enough glutamic acid, which is impossible. If you have enough protein, you always have enough of it. But if you don't have enough protein, you are feeding too much fat and carbohydrates, then suddenly the adrenal gland cannot cope with lack of glutamic acid, which is super important. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you have one of the clues for Addison's disease. So
yeah. So we keep coming back to this. Is why we keep coming back to it, because a lot of people have some look like small issues. Anytime, as soon as your animal is showing a symptom, the problem has been there for quite a while. So the symptoms are the last things to display ourselves, and we can get so much right by getting these basics in place for us and our animals, which is why Timo spends so much time on this, because it's heartbreaking, really, to see how many problems and the quality of life for your pets and therefore yourself can be so dramatically improved by this. So absolutely. So thank you so much for that. So the only other things I would like to say, if we haven't got any final questions, is next week, Timo and I are going to be going through some of the frequently asked questions on the nutrition for your dogs and cats. We thought we ought to do that because we're getting some of the same questions coming up again. So any of you who are always very already in the courses, you can put your questions under the course. If not, my email is under all the videos. So please do email me with any specific questions you'd like Timo and I to answer. And of course, we hope you'll join us live and you can answer the questions live, because what we want to do is really make sure we that you're all really clear about how to feed your cats and dogs well. And then the week after that, we will be going, this is a really, really important one, on the difference between whole food minerals and additive minerals, because most feed that you buy, even a lot of the raw frozen, has got sort of artificial additives of vitamins and minerals in, and there's a huge difference between natural sources and artificial sources. So we want to make sure everyone understands that. And then after that, we will be looking at the good subject of worming. So one last question, Timo, for you. Cystitis is very common with cats. I've not had problems with this since they've been eating kibble with CD in it, which I think is cysteine. Now they're on your diet. I hope it won't reoccur.
Well, who knows? The absorption levels we don't know, and we don't need what's in the kibble and what kibble it is. But if you want to have more information, just send me the brand and I will look into it.
Yeah, it's really, really important, because, you know, very, very rarely is anything processed better than anything you're going to home prepare yourself. But making sure that you've got the knowledge, which you have now, to make sure they're balanced, is absolutely going to give your cat the best chance of not having this. So thank you so much, as always. You know, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your brilliant interaction, your brilliant questions. I think Bob's going to be on next week doing snake wrestling with all his poisonous Australian snakes, as he's got here. You are funny, Bob. We really, really appreciate it. We appreciate your interaction. Please do share with any of your pet-minded friends, because when our pets are happy and healthy, generally speaking, we are happy and healthy. Anything else from you, Timo? How are your little assistants going? Are they still?
They are still around. They helped me with some things.
Yeah. I don't know if everyone heard, they were whispering all the answers to Timo. So if
I have no idea actually what I'm talking about.
Yeah, this is his secret is out now. If you think Timo's a clever one, you now know who's really answering the questions. So thank you so much to everyone, and we will hopefully see you next week.
Yeah.
Subscribe, hit that like button. It really
See you again.
going. Thank you, Andrea, for all your help.
Bye.